other news, Cosatu has hit back at Cosatu's leadership for what it calls harsh and misleading comments about changes to the labour law. Cosatu says these changes would take away workers' rights and make it easier to weaken labour protections. The fight shows growing tension between trade union federations in South Africa over how best to protect workers. We're now joined by Cosatu General Secretary Zwelizima Vavi. Zwelizima, very good afternoon to you. Just bring us up to speed. What's brought about this spat with Cosatu?
Firstly, this is a very uncomfortable and regrettable episode in the relationship between the four federations that are participating in NEDLEC. If anything, workers are expecting us to be addressing joint press conferences, to be addressing joint rallies, to oppose the devastating austerity programs of the government, to stand up against crime, to protect police stations, to protect the honorable police officials who are coming up in public, to stand up against the abuse of women and children in our society, and to demand better services to our people in our rural areas, urban areas, and everywhere else. That's what workers expect us to be about, not about creating insults in the public platforms and or accusing one another of being this and that and that. So we have to respond. We have had to respond to a second pointed attack now from Cosatu on the integrity of the Federation SAFTU, unprovoked. The only sin that apparently we are committing is to join up with 40 other organizations to point out that the amendments to the Code of Good Practice on dismissal is going to take away hard-won rights workers have secured in the Constitution of South Africa as well as in the labor law. Now, Cosatu spokesperson decides to launch this brutal attack on the Federation, sparing no harsh word, basically, to attack other workers. And yet we never, ever see them use the same harsh words against the austerity programs led by the alliance partner, the ANC, against the corruption that is stealing the future of our children. These are all strong words, only spared for other fellow trade unionists in South Africa. Very, very unfortunate. So we are participating in this discussion because we feel that we have no choice but to protect the integrity and the dignity of our own federation from this unwarranted attack from the leadership of Cosatu.
Zwelizima, I mean, from my vantage point, this just looks like handbags at 10 paces. I mean, isn't it distracting from the real issue of getting as many workers into jobs as possible so we can grow this economy as much as possible?
Exactly. That should be the issue. The issue is, where is our alternative programs? How do we work together in the context where all of us have agreed that we will have a critical participation even in the national dialogue? We have, for goodness sake, a joint declaration that says we will work together, we will forge unity in the streets, we'll coordinate our affiliates to speak in one voice whenever they are driving common interest amongst themselves. Where does this energy now, instead of doing that, take that energy out in Cosatu and attack them for protesting against the labor law amendments, which in the eyes of Cosatu and countless other organizations that are joining the campaign represent an attack on the hard-won rights of workers. They say, no, we are misleading the public. There are no attacks on the labor law amendments. Now let's look at what is this. The code that is being introduced is going to tell the employer, that it will no longer be required to hold formal disciplinary hearings in case of workers on probation. It means that it now opens the door for arbitrary, unprocedural dismissal of individuals on the basis that they are young workers, meaning that they want to sign off a future of young workers into the sharks who wants to exploit them. How could anybody, when we protest that workers will face no formal hearings anymore, and that the employers will just call you for a dialogue, and that if in the exchanges of the dialogue the employer is of a view that you do no longer fit into the culture defined in the head of the employer, you can be dismissed without any hearing, where you have a right to call witnesses, to cross-examine the witnesses of the employer. How could anybody protesting against that be iking Cosatu and to make them so angry that they spare no harsh word in attacking us? Thirdly, how could us, when we protest that the workers on probation can now be dismissed without a meaningful support, assessment, or justification, effectively opening a revolving door such that the young workers will enter and will be kept on probation, not limited to 3 months as the law now requires, but to 6 months and further, and to create a new class of employees or workers that will be now exploited at will by the employers? How could you say, when we protest, that the employer will no longer be required now to ensure that the workers who lose their jobs through retrenchments will be the first to be preferred to come back when the company faces a better situation, and that when we go to NEDLAC to say this is wrong, it is not the employers who are attacking us, but another fellow federation? How could, when we see that the draft code of conduct appears to introduce progressive elements regarding the unprotected strikes, and yet now, instead of allowing workers to make individual presentation when they are dismissed, they must now make collective presentation, meaning that we're opening up workers to mass dismissals from the employers? When we raise those issues, the Cosatu spokesperson is on us, attacking us like you can't believe. This is so unfortunate. And we don't know what informs this politically. We have our suspicions, knowing how compromising the relationship they have with the Tripartite Alliance is on their own independence. But we thought that we are maturing. We are moving beyond the fact that we know that they are in bed with the employer, the biggest employer in the country, the government. But we were wrong, clearly. Instead of them calling us into a boardroom to say, comrades, you are wrong, you are reading these amendments incorrectly, this is what they represent and not what you are claiming that they represent. No, they issue now a second statement to attack the federation. The same people, we have a joint declaration which says that we as the Labour will not support any legislative amendment or policy proposals that seeks to undermine workers' rights, weaken collective bargaining, erode protections against unfair dismissals, or make it easier for employers to fire workers. We signed on this in January and March of this year in a massive leadership meeting of the four federation.
All right, Zwelizima, time is against us, I'm afraid. We're going to have to leave it there, but I can only hope that SAFTU and Cosatu put their heads together instead of banging heads. SAFTU General Secretary Zwelizima Vavi.